Samantha with Clawfoot Farm, and it is May. So that means the weather is starting to warm up just a titch. And with that, the cold weather crops that we planted in the very early spring are starting to bolt. Most of them are greens, and one of those crops for us is the bok choy. So we have harvested all of the bok choy, and I'll show you what we're gonna do with all of it. First thing I'm gonna do is rinse the bok choy in a sink full of cool water. That I put just a glug of regular white vinegar in there as well. It just kind of helps get the dirt off of there. And so I'm just gonna slosh this around in the sink just to get the dirt out. So when your brassicas or your greens bolt, it means that they are going to flower. And this one is doing just that. You can see a little flower head starting up on that. What happens with that, and why it's not good to just keep it in the garden, is that it becomes less edible. Usually the leaves, which is what you want to eat on your greens, the leaves become bitter, and sometimes they become, like on lettuces, they become tough and less tender. And basically the plant, when the plant is young, it puts its energy into growing the leaves, and that's what we like to eat. When the plant is bolting, it's putting all its energy into making flowers and making seed. And so that's, it's just the energy is not in the leaves anymore. And so the plant is just doing its normal life cycle, and it's not as good to eat. Actually, this piece right here I'm not going to save, because this bok choy also tends to get a really thick and woody stem, which you can kind of see there, that is not very pleasant to eat. So this actual piece is going to go to our rabbits, and they will love it. So now that we've rinsed all the bok choy, I'm going to just chop it into about 2, maybe 3-inch pieces. It's not a requirement to do this. It's just it's easier for my family to use and keep them this way. So really just about this big. That big. I mean, some of them are this big, and that's fine. You can do this whole also if you need to, or if you're going to use these exclusively in stir fries. But we're just chopping them all up into one big pile like this, and then we're going to take them to the stove and blanch them up. Chopped up all of the bok choy into about 2 to 3-inch pieces, and we have our setup all ready to blanch the bok choy so that we can put it in to bags and freeze it. So what we've got here is we've got a pot of water that's on the stove and boiling. We've got a bowl with water and ice in it, and then I have another bowl that is empty, and then it just has a colander in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a good, probably double handful of the bok choy, and I'm going to put it into the boiling water, and I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. And I know that's weird to set it for 1 minute, but I set my timer. So 1 minute to boil in the water, and that's how to blanch it. As soon as that 1 minute is off, we're going to use our slotted spoon, and we're going to get it out of the boiling water into the ice water so that it stops cooking, and then out of the ice water and into here to drain. Bok choy has a lot of water content in it. It's really juicy and meaty for a green. So this is a little bit different than blanching kale. When you're blanching kale, you're going to blanch it for a little bit longer. You're not going to worry about dipping it into the cold water for a short amount of time. But these, because they are already so full of water and juiciness, and we're going to freeze them to really keep that quality. We're going to blanch them for only 1 minute, quickly dunk them in this cold water and quickly get them to drain, because we don't want them to soak up extra water we don't want them to soak up extra water and then freeze and have all that water crystallize inside the bok choy. So we're going to be quick about it. So I'm just going to grab a couple of handfuls here. So about that much. Stick it right into the boiling water. And my timer is now set for 1 minute. Stir this up. There we go. You might be wondering why we are blanching and saving all this bok choy and not just eating it. That we have been eating it, and just right now we also have a lot of other greens, and the bok choy is going to seed. It's starting to bolt. So for us on our 1/4 acre farm here, we grow about 70% of all of our own food. We got 10 seconds left. And so how we do that is by preserving the foods that we grow. So, oh, there's our timer. I'm gonna dismiss that. So our timer is done for 1 minute. I'm going to scoop these out as quick as I can and dunk them into the ice water. Now that we have our bok choy all blanched, it's ready to go into a container so that we can now freeze it for us to use in the winter. So what I do is I use my food saver and the food saver bags. If you can use this as well. Also, if you don't have one of these, you can also use just a freezer Ziploc bag, a plastic storage bag for freezer. Put your bok choy in there, and then use a straw to suck out as much air as you can. As really you want less air in your package. You also can use a jar if you're trying to get without plastic, if you're trying to do less plastic, which we are. However, I don't have a jar attachment on this. If you have an attachment that you can actually do a suction out of a jar, then go ahead and put it in your jar and do that. If you put it in a jar and just cap it and put it in the freezer, it won't last as long. It'll still freeze and it'll still be fine, but it will only last probably maybe like a month, maybe 2 months before you're gonna see crystallization and freezer burn on that. So if your plan is to use it within about 2 months, go ahead and do that. Don't use plastic. If I had an attachment on my food saver to get the suction, get air out of my canning jars, I would use the canning jars in the freezer. But as it is, we are using the bags because that's what we've got now. The food saver is just a vacuum sealer. I think there's some other brands on the market also. This one was a gift, so I don't really know the other brands. I didn't research this. We use this one and it works great. A tip is to also grab a Sharpie so that you can write on your bags so you know what it is that's in there. You can get pre-measured bags also. It's a little more economical for us to use the rolls because you can cut this. See how it's just a roll, and you can cut it for however size that you need it. Okay, and I'm gonna put that right here. Close her up, and I'm gonna do seal. So I'm sealing the bottom end, and that is essentially going to make a bag for us. So it's sealed it. Check your seal. Sometimes you'll have to do it twice. The seal looks good. So now we have a bag. So it went from a loop to a bag. So now we have a bag. Now I'm going to actually write on my bag right now before I put the food in a measuring cup so that I know it is 2 cups. For our family, 2 cups is the perfect amount to add to a soup or to add to a stir fry or add to rice because we usually don't just eat a big bowl of just bok choy. We usually mix it, so 2 cups is perfect for us. So I just put it into the bag, and I'm going to put it back, the top end, the open end now, back into the vacuum sealer. And now I'm going to do vacuum and seal, and it's going to suck all the air out of this bag and then seal it as well. Okay, so now it has a nice seal along the top. And again, you got to check it and make sure that it actually did have a really good seal in there. And then it has all the bok choy is right in there. And see how the plastic bag is now snug all around here. And now it is ready to just go right into the freezer with my... So we ended up with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we ended up with 12 cups of bok choy that is all wrapped and ready to go to the freezer for us to store and use this winter. What other things do you like to store over the season?
Mommy!
What you got?
We got balloons.
You got